I apologize. This is a very strange angle, but I want to be able to flip the camera around so you can actually see my table. And of course, I have had all of the technical challenges you can imagine this evening. I was supposed to be live over on Facebook. I apologize to everybody for switching platforms, but Facebook in the Paper and Prose Society Facebook page will not let me go live for some reason. So fun times. Wanted to start by welcoming everyone. Thank you so much for anyone who has been following along with this journey. I will put up the additional pages for all of the other chapters coming here very quickly. I really appreciate anyone who was on the who's been following along with the entire story in the Paper and Prose Society Facebook page, as well as all the graphics that I've uploaded. You guys have been so sweet, and I really appreciate all of the things that you guys have been so kind to say. And thank you again for joining me here tonight. If you're following me here live, please throw in the chat where you're coming in from, because I find it really exciting to see where everybody's coming from. This was a story, and I guess probably I should backtrack, but first let's light a candle, because I'm feeling like a little spacey. We're trying to run around at the last minute. I made candles. I don't know if you can see these. 100% that witch. I made candles the other night, and these are absolutely fabulous. And I've been kind of saving this 100% that witch one until we go live. It has made my entire studio smell absolutely fabulous. I might have to do a giveaway or a box to send some of these candles, but let me just start that. It'll bring back a little bit of zen. But so I started, I'm in the process, as most of you may have read or heard at some point, of creating a junk journal AI, an artificial intelligence for junk journalers. As part of that process, and really the development of a community to go along with that, I started the Paper and Prose Society Facebook page. And I am super excited to bring together the art of junk journaling along with the ability to tell a story. Specifically, I started looking at, we were looking at spooky season coming, and what story, what heroine, basically, for, that we could retell the story of in junk journal format. I love junk journaling because it's really an art form that you can experience, you can hold in your hands, and we don't often get to actually experience art in that way. Especially if you're not an artist who interacts with the creation of a piece of art. A junk journal really enables you to be able to actually interact with the art, which I love. And so I wanted to combine my love of junk journaling along with my desire to incorporate storytelling. And specifically, I started to look at, who or what kind of story or junk journal did I want to do for Spooky Season Challenge. And then I hit on the Bride of Frankenstein. And the more I delved into the character of the Bride of Frankenstein, the more I was just really sad that her story ended so abruptly. She was really a sideline character, but she has become the most iconically recognizable spooky season woman, right? And yet she actually had zero storyline. If you go back and watch the old movie, she didn't utter a word. She was killed in the end and left for dead, and she was made specifically to be the bride of a monster. So she really had no part in other than to be, some man's, plaything, essentially, whether it was the doctor who were creating her or the monster who wanted a lover. I don't know. And so that got me, I was frustrated with that whole thing. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to tell the bride's story because she died. So really it was telling her story from the aspect of what if she hadn't died? I mean, she was obviously left for dead, right? But what if she hadn't died and gone on and actually survived? And how can we give the Bride of Frankenstein an actual storyline, that she is able to actually accomplish something. And that's where I started working in the junk journal to go with the Bride of Frankenstein. So, my goal is always to make sure that we create more than just pretty pages. I mean, pretty pages are great, but really, I mean, the form of junk journaling was really about having something to create and journal in, right? And so, or to expand on and make your journal that you would normally journal in more creatively appealing, right? And so I really wanted to make sure that we were able to tell stories along with the art, because if you're going to flip through and you're going to experience junk journaling, you don't always want to write in the junk journal necessarily. And so wouldn't it be cool if you could actually experience a junk journal and the story at the same time? And then as I started down this path with the Bride of Frankenstein, I started to notice how many amazing women in fiction exist only to support the male counterpart in their hero's journey. And that made me kind of angry. I'm not going to lie. The feminist rage came out a little bit. And so, like the Bride of Frankenstein, Guinevere, Ophelia, Mrs. Claus, who we have coming up here next in November, December, they never get to tell their own stories. They're always a sidelined character in the male story. And so, journal, the Page and Prose Society and our journal jams are specifically about rewriting that and giving those women the voice and a chance to be the heroine in their own fate. Right. And so each challenge is going to, combine the fictional character along with, art journaling. And it's not just creating pages. I am literally starting things on fire in my candle. Note to self, don't add, looks like rose petals to your, it's gonna crackle here. So hopefully you can't hear that. Each challenge combines the short fiction story along with the art of journaling. So we're not creating just pages, we're literally writing these women back into existence. So super excited for that. So I'm going to flip you around so we can actually take a look at the journal that I created specifically for this challenge. It's been a labor of love, to be honest with you. This was the first of the journal jams, the first of the Paper and Prose Society journal challenges that we've done. And I'm really excited not only about this particular journal and how it turned out and the use of artificial intelligence in a lot of the graphics, but also I'm really excited that, this helped me kind of format exactly how I want to proceed forward with working with you all and journaling and the ability to tell the stories of these wonderful women. So without further ado, I'm going to flip you around. Sorry for the weird angle again here in my art studio, but I'm going to flip you around so you can actually see the journal at hand and we can start working through the beauty of this. So let me flip you here without making you seasick, hopefully. There you go. Okay, so wonderful. We've got our coffee, we've got our candle, which is hopefully good. There's my little Bride of Frankenstein. She's beautiful. One of the things I just wanted to point out, because I laid this out on the table just to have something pretty to look at behind here, I took all my leftover pieces and graphics and everything, and I actually created a masterboard with them. This is all just little tiny snippet pieces of graphics and things left over from inside, put them all out. I do a wash, spray wash, stenciled on top of it. And now I can cut this up or use this as a backboard for whatever in future. So it's a great way to use up scraps if you haven't already done that. So here is my Bride of Frankenstein book. Now in the story, she finds the journal, which is why I used a commercially available journal. I do not normally work in a commercially available journal only because they get, I don't have the ability to space out the signatures like you would in a journal that you hand make. Not my ideal type of journal, but this worked for this particular storyline. I mean, I specifically chose this journal type for this specific storyline. And going forward, what you'll probably see is me making my journals and covers probably more frequently. So on the outside of the journal, we have this, it's the journal itself, it comes out of this, it's like a suede material. I added some beautiful lace that I tinted the purple. I did go with kind of a black and purple and theme throughout the whole entire journal. Vivian, who is my bride of Frankenstein, I renamed her or gave her a name since she didn't have one, finds a locket. So I did include the locket as part of my outside cover. So it looks like it's actually hanging around her neck. And then there are a couple of patches. So let me open her up and we'll take a look at what is going on inside. Again, this will come out of the actual cover, which is kind of nice that it does slide out because I was able to work in it outside of the cover rather than have to have it stuck inside the cover for the entirety of this. I added a cover page to my story. So it's The Bride of Frankenstein, Rewired, Reborn, Reimagine, The Becoming of Vivian Stein. So a short story by me. And then I also included a foreword, really just goes into thanking everybody for following along on the creative journey, reading and watching and crafting beside me as the Bride of Frankenstein, The Becoming of Vivian Stein. When I started Journal Jams, I wanted to do something different, as I mentioned. And so this really enabled me to be able to do that. The bride finds this journal, and it was Dr. Victor Frankenstein's journal, so I included a page of her scratching his name out and writing her own as part of my front cover. In each of the pages, as you've seen before, because I think I filmed the first few chapters, I actually wrote the story. So there's 8 chapters because there were 8 weeks. And I included graphics that went along with the actual chapters. I won't read this here, but I will include a story narrative video if you want to listen along to the actual full story. Or you can always go to the Substack page for Paper and Prose Society, or I think it's Paper and Prose Substack, where you can actually read through all 8 weeks of the story. Baby Daisy, I'm not going to take that because you're going to end up making lots of noise. And so I've included each one of the pages, or the first 2 pages of each week were actually the story. And then there were elements within the story. So essentially, the bride she was left in the tower for dead at the end of the movie. As Dr. Frankenstein disappeared, and the other doctor, Dr. Petrous, I don't remember exactly what his name was off the top of my head, but he and the monster and the bride were all left in the tower to die. I have her tumbling down the stairs and actually surviving in my story. And so she comes to the next morning in and amongst the rubble to find the doctor, Dr. Pretorius. I actually have it in here, and the monster laying dead, right? So they've died. She survives, right? But she's looking around and she's confused because, she's supposedly newly born. She's just been through this horrific accident of the tower blowing up, and, she's been left for dead. And she saw Dr. Frankenstein basically abandon her. So her creator abandons her and leaves her for dead. So as she's wandering around the ruin, she actually finds a couple of things. So she finds the desk with the actual journal. And so this is where the journal is born as well, in the ruins. Opens up a drawer, and it's as if the journal, a perfectly clean journal, was never hurt. The other thing that she finds is a photograph of Dr. Frankenstein. So we have included a vintage photograph of one of my dead relatives because he kind of looks like Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein. At least I thought he did. And then she also finds in the wreckage a box that's mangled and charred, but there's a box, and in it are papers, gold coins. So I've included some gold coins, and the locket. So the same locket that I included then on the front cover. So each one of the story pages lifts up, and it would be, as she's deciding, what's going on, we find her in the final scene of chapter 1, standing at the top of the hill, looking down at the city below that, she doesn't know where she's going to go. So she's going to start, down the hill towards the city. So, and then after the first 2 pages of the actual story, then we have the bride actually journaling as if she's journaling in her own journal. And then I thought through, what would a bride have to put in the journal? And I included a piece of what might have been her wedding dress that she was wearing, because they kind of wrapped her up in the white, like wedding dress stuff. A bride would have a bouquet. So I made a little bouquet there of charred black flowers. And then I actually included her journaling on the in the journal. And you'll see a variety of ways that I've incorporated this. Sometimes I've just written in the journal. Sometimes I've included them as tuck spots and all of that. And again, this journal writing, you can also see in the entire storyline, which I've included. So all the things that this would be her first person perspective of all the things that she, was feeling, thinking, and going through at the time from her own words, basically. Chapter 2, we find her, she's wandering around the town, and she comes to, it's night by the time she gets to the town. And all of a sudden, out of the darkness pops up Mary, or I'm sorry, a maid, Minnie. And Minnie played an integral role in the final Bride of Frankenstein movie. She was the one who, the outspoken maid. Anyway, she finds the bride wandering around, notices she's hurt, and she actually takes her in and takes her back to a house. Later, the bride figures out that, she's actually at Dr. Frankenstein's house. So we have here a tuck spot that I've created in the side of the building. And then, a scene of where she would have been in the house. And then this is actually just a quick note from Minnie, the maid, on finding her and things like that. So I've included that. And all of these graphics, by the way, were made with Junk Journal AI. Junk Journal AI should be done here very shortly, and you all will be able to utilize the system to create amazing graphics as well in your journals, which is super exciting. So as she is in the house, she figures out that she wanders around in the house, and she comes to a study. I have the study doors open into a library. And she figures out that she's at actually Dr. Frankenstein's house. So she's been taken in. He's nowhere to be. He's not there, things of that nature. But she is definitely in his home. And so she's a little worried, she's going to be found out, but she's kind of laying low and healing, because she's, again, just been stitched back together. She's been through the explosion. She's not in a place to be able to fend for herself, basically. So we have her journaling. She finds a lot of stuff in his office. So it's things like entire diagrams on his machine and things like that. Again, these were all made, all of these beautiful diagrams and things like that were made with Junk Journal AI. And they're just beautiful graphics on a variety of machinery-esque parts and things. So we've tucked those in there. Things she would have found throughout her time get tucked into the journal as well. Chapter 3 is really the reflections of ash and glass. So the house, is moving. She's getting better. She's realized that, as she is spending a lot more time in Dr. Frankenstein's study, that he had an extensive array of papers and things like that on how to put together, the monster, basically. And so I had created a bunch of different graphics and things like that actually just tuck into what would be the pages or the slats of the desk. So, she is really struggling throughout this story to really come into and figure out what she's going to do now. She's struggling with the anger of who she had been and what she had experienced and what Dr. Frankenstein has done to her. We have various different photographs that I've included of scenes that, you would have expected to see if you were watching the movie, basically. In the next page, this again, she's kind of trying to figure out what she wants to do with her life at this point. Like, does she stay? Does she go? She's, again, really struggling with the fact that, she was born as an experiment, but she's also starting at this point to have flashbacks of who she was before. So again, if you had watched the movie, and I would recommend everybody does, she was a fresh body, real fresh. They killed her, basically. And so the brain continues to function for a while after, somebody technically is dead. So she remembers something. So we have some different graphics there that I've included. And then also Dr. Frankenstein's desk. And if you flip it over, there she is sitting at his desk. So, and again, these photos, these are glimpses of some of the memories that she's having as she is going through here and really, starting to piece together who is she really and like what happened to her, basically. So then we come into, she's realized that her previous name, because she's found documents in Dr. Frankenstein's desk that her previous name was Helena Voss, and she was 18. And she had a mother and a fiance. And so here we have the locket, and the locket has a photo in it. And the actual locket that's on the outside, actually, I put a photo in it too of who she was, before all of this happened. So, and then I created a little folio where she's included a bunch of things and thoughts, and, she's not his bride. She's no longer Helena. She chooses the name Vivian Stein, and she just really is not sure who she is and what she wants to do. So there we have her actual journal pages tucked in here. It's going to get stuck. I'll pull it out for right now and I'll put it back. And then we go on. So as she's healing, Dr. Frankenstein and Mary, his wife, come back. And he tries to kill her. He tries to kill the bride again because he cannot live with the fact that she didn't die in the explosion. He thought he was off the hook and no longer had to worry about it. He tries to kill her. Mary stops him. His wife, Mary, stops him from killing her, and essentially the bride flees the building or the home. And as she's wandering through the town, she remembers that her mother was somewhere in town. She actually goes to what she thought was the house. Her mother, of course, thinks she's dead. So, she thinks it's a ghost wandering around outside and slams the door in her face, basically. And so now the bride has really nowhere to go. She belongs only to herself at this point. She has no family to go home to. She has no place in Dr. Frankenstein's house. And, she can't stay there anymore. So she really just doesn't know what she wants to do. She, of course, has memories of where, dreams that she had growing up. And things that she wanted to do. And so, she decides she's got to leave the town because it's just not safe there for her anymore. So we have her, talking about the weight of all of this. And then I included, and again, she talks about having dreams and things like that. So I included a folio here of like the veil and web of dreams, right? And then actual, I don't know if you can see that, actual glimpses of like dreams that she's having throughout the time that, she's thinking about and remembering. Specifically, she also remembers that she used to dream a lot about going from the small town she lived in, to Paris. So we find her next, this is really the transition. And so I included a transition page in between her old life and her new life. There she is as a young girl with her mother. Again, all these images, most of these images, with the exception of the couple that from Dr. Frankenstein, are, AI generated images. She's leaving the tower behind, and she's really going she's going to go to another tower, basically. So she's headed in the direction of Paris. So I've included, this is really where she transitions from bride into who she is going to be. And I've tucked in here a bunch of like random images. And these are things like she collected postcards as a child and things like that, and images of Paris and a map of Paris and things like that, just as things that she remembers as she's transitioning into. And those are just tucked in behind there. So she wanders around and she comes to, she's going to get on a train. She has a little bit of cash from the box that she took with her in her journal, that she's going to get on a train. But the train doesn't leave until the next morning. So she actually stumbles upon an old woman at an old gypsy woman at an encampment near the railroad tracks. Right. And so the old woman, is sitting there shuffling a deck of tarot cards and asks the bride if she wants, she wants her to pull some cards for her. So, and first she comes with, she pulls out 3 cards. The first is the Fool. It's a painted figure stepping toward an unknown. And the second was the star shimmering with promise and renewal. And the third is the pale crescent moon. And again, I included the crescent moon or the waning moon on the cover as well. The star, the fool reminds her that, means beginnings and, needs to have the courage to start even when you do not know where your path leads. The star reminds you that hope still burns even in the ashes. And specifically, the crescent moon or the waning moon actually, means that, it's asking you to release what no longer serves you, the grief, the guilt, the name, that no longer fits. So here we have tucked in the 3 tarot cards with the night moth and the moon. And there she is sitting in the encampment under the moon, waiting, kind of waiting for dawn so she can go on. So here we have in this flip through, we have her journaling in the journal, all of her thoughts and things like that. We have the moon. We have a little quick card here that kind of explains that the waning crescent moon appears as a thin crescent, symbolizing a time of surrender, rest, and healing, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. And then really it's the death of her old life and the beginning of new. So, I added the gravestone and, the graveyard and things like that, because she's really talking about letting go and becoming, who you are meant to be, basically. So she goes off to Paris, and Paris is a little overwhelming for somebody who, one, is the undead. And then also just in general, she's a small town girl. She wanders around Paris and she comes across an apothecary shop. And so as the apothecary shop owner, she's talking to the apothecary shop. She starts the conversation about like various different herbs and things like that. And the apothecary owner realizes that she knows a little bit more than the average person about healing. So the apothecary owner, the madam, also realizes that she probably has nowhere to go. And she looks like she's definitely healing from some scars. So she could see the scars on her neck are not completely healed. And so we have, she offers her a job. And so we have on one side, we have the madam, and on the other side, we have the bride starting her first day of work at the apothecary shop. So there's Paris and the apothecary. And so she takes on a job at the apothecary, and the madam offers her a place to stay upstairs above the shop and things of that nature. So we've got these cute apothecary labels and an apothecary jar that is actually a tuck spot, which is beautiful, and real flowers, pressed flowers on here. So here she is, talking about living in Paris, talking about not having anywhere to go. She's pressed some flowers. There's a little bit of a glare on there. Sorry. She's, pressed some flowers in her journal, things of that nature. And she is talking about, really trying to figure out, who she is and what she is, where she's going. So there we have the full graphic of the apothecary shop, indoor and outdoor. So that's cute. Tuck that back in, as well as some dried flowers and things like that, pressed into the pages. So, a couple of years go by, 2 years, in fact, go by, and she, the building of the Eiffel Tower is going on, the exposition, is coming, and the Paris exposition is coming. And we're about the 1889 timeframe when the Eiffel Tower was being built for the World's Fair. And so she is now really coming to her own. She is her own boss. She actually is now a partner in the shop, and really is the person who's become renowned across Paris as a healer. So, from out of the ashes has risen someone who's using all of her second chance for good, right? And so we come into the apothecary shop one day. While she's standing in the apothecary shop, in walks, a voice that she hasn't heard in a long time, and it was Mary. Mary she doesn't know who she is because she looks significantly different now than she did when she was living, when the Frankenstein tried to kill her a second time. But Mary is now begging for her assistance as a healer to heal her husband, Dr. Frankenstein. She doesn't know who she is. Basically, Vivian says, okay, give me a couple of days to think on this. I do think I have something that could save him, but she's really struggling. Does she save the doctor or does she just let him die? So we have, some dried flowers and things like that. I started this page thinking I'm going to make little tiny bottles of actual apothecary bottles. And I left it in here just because it was super cute, but it doesn't really go with the vibe. And so I actually made these little apothecary bottles with potions in them. It doesn't really go with the vibe of the whole book, so I actually added that to the top, but little cheeky sneak there with the apothecary and some beautiful flowers, pressed flowers that I've added into a graphic there. Added the butterfly and really, hope, right? So here she is again. She looks nothing like, not sure if there's a glare. Not sure. She doesn't look anything like she did before there in the when she was the bride in Frankenstein's house. So this is where she's really journaling how she's struggling with the decision on whether or not, she's going to actually save him. Does she let him die or does she save him? And so she's talking about Mary Frankenstein walking back in the door. What is it? The irony, and cruel that now she has to be the one to decide, whether or not she lets him live or die. And as a healer, she's been helping to heal people. So does she just let him go? I don't know. So she does decide to go meet with Dr. Frankenstein. At first, he doesn't recognize her, but it dawns on him who she is because it's, something he's thought about for a really long time on where she is in the world and things like that. And so, again, all of these beautiful graphics were made with AI, which is why I was able to make such an elaborate book and really be able to tell the story in the way that I imagined it. I probably could have scoured the world and found all kinds of old graphics and things like that. It would have taken a really long time. And it was great to be able to sit with AI and just tell it what I envisioned in my head this scene looked like and had it help me generate all these beautiful images. But so she does decide to go ahead and give him the potion. So she decides that she is going to save him because, while he lies dying, the irony is that his monster holds his salvation in the palm of her hands. And so she really uses this as the catalyst. She decides that she's not going to be his executioner, but she's also not going to be his redeemer. And she wants him to live out the rest of his days knowing that she was the one who saved him, despite the fact that he tried to murder her several times. So she walks off into the night, basically, and says goodbye. I hope we never meet again. And she walks away with a clean conscience to go on and live the rest of her days. And there she is talking about what she had done. And, Vivian Stein tonight, she learned the art of letting go finally in the end. So that was the end of The Bride of Frankenstein. And thank you guys so much for sticking with me or following along. Anybody on the Facebook page, the Facebook group who's been following along with this story, I really hope to see some of your journals. I have been I've been posting a lot of the photos for this on the actual Junk Journal Paper and Prose Society Facebook page. And I'm also adding a Paper and Prose Society Pinterest page to be able to add these graphics so that you can, if you decide you want to do a Vivian Stein or a Bride of Frankenstein retelling journal of your very own, the story is out there on my Substack. The story is on the Facebook page. I've been posting it weekly, and it's been just an amazing journey to go through the retelling of the story. So, Vivian started off as a forgotten creation of Dr. Frankenstein, hidden away in a tower that essentially he had burned to the ground. And she survives, and she learns who she was, and she discovers her strength, right? And, later she becomes a healer, a woman in her own right. In the end, she faces her creator, not with vengeance, but with mercy. And I think that's a great lesson for us all to learn in our own lives, that, we hold a lot of power, and confidence is the only thing that difference between, us being a victim or not. This story of Vivian Stein is really about reclaiming your power and choosing who to become after, your life is potentially torn apart, where life is full of choices. So let's see, what else do we want to go through really quick? I do have a few announcements. Again, I want to thank everybody who's been part of the Junk Journal Jam and the Paper Pro Society communities on Facebook. I believe we have under Junk Journal AI on Instagram, here on YouTube, Junk Journal AI. And I love seeing, the support and everything that I've seen. I would love to see some of your all's images of journals that you are creating as we go through these. Now that Vivian's story is complete and tomorrow is Halloween and the end of spooky season, it's a little bittersweet because I've really gotten to understand the bride a little bit better in the telling of her story, but it's time for something magical and a little probably more merry. So starting this Saturday, let me set this aside because I have really exciting stuff. So I always decided that we were going to do Mrs. Claus for the Christmas season. And because she's another character, if you really think about it, who is sidelined behind Santa's story, right? One of the things it dawned on me as I was putting all of this together, Mrs. Claus doesn't even have a name. It's just Mrs. Claus, right? And so we are going to start this Saturday. I'm going to kick off the next Journal Jam in the Paper and Prose Society, and that's Mrs. Claus's story and Mrs. Claus's Chronicles, Cozy Recipes and Holiday Magic. And I, in an effort to be really organized, I put together an entire packet for you guys. This one is going to be whimsical, warm, and full of creative prompts. So think handwritten recipes, cocoa, and the untold story of Mrs. Claus before she was Santa's wife, and really how she is the magic behind everything that goes on at the North Pole. So on the Paper and Prose Society, I will post this on Saturday, so you can get the entire packet. But if you go to junkjournal.ai, the website, and you click on, I believe it is Paper and Prose Society's page tab at the top, you will see the different challenges. And I actually have this saved where you can download this entire packet. It is 60 pages, y'all. 60 pages of goodness. Basically, it kicks off the 6 weeks of the challenge, which I have an explanation on there of how the challenge works, essentially about the challenge, storytelling, prompts, and all of that stuff, which is really exciting. I'm inviting you, I decided this at the very last minute in week 6, to do a trade of handmade Christmas cards or ATC cards. And so there's an explanation in week 6 where we would send those in, and then we'll divide them up and send them back out to everybody. But each week has a theme. So the theme, Mrs. Claus's backstory, journal page ideas, I've included those, as well as creative inspiration, because someone recommended in the Paper and Prose Society that they would love some craft along crafts. And so I've included a bunch of examples of that, and including some Christmas recipes to go along with each week. And so my plan is to do a bunch of demos and a bunch of really cool stuff. I have so much planned to pack into 6 weeks. The other thing that I included this time that I didn't include before is really, it's the magic of Christmas, a personal journal memory. And I have a couple of journal prompts if you want to treat this as, a personal journal process. And so I've included some prompts. Each week, like I said, has a theme. So we had, week 1 is theme is wonder. Then we have love, joy, giving, and reflection, and then hope, right? And so each theme, they're beautiful. And I've included on the Pinterest page, on the Paper and Prose Society's Pinterest page, which is also linked in here somewhere. I have included examples. So if you're like, I don't know exactly what I want to do to create an ornament of hope, I have included what I feel like would be examples of Pinterest pins that kind of match all of the things, including the recipes for each of the weeks. So super fun that, we'll have like visual examples, and as I'm doing things, and I'll post that stuff as well. I have a quick explanation of Journal Jams, or the Paper and Prose Society, and Junk Journal AI. Also coming up in December, which I'll go over at the end, but the 12 Magical Nights is included in here. But then the big thing of this whole thing is the entire 50 pages of graphics. So I've included recipe cards in here. So there's 4 recipe card designs, some washi tapes that you can print out on stickers and include those. And then I have made a slew of graphics for y'all to use in your journals that you can print out at home completely free and use to your heart's content in all of your journal stuff. They are just a beautiful plethora of Mrs. Clauses and different scenes and, all kinds of fun things, including, her eating cookies and working out. Well, I had a lot of fun pulling all of these out of AI. Mrs. Claus at the beach. Here she is at the beach again in a different shot. Just a variety of different Mrs. Clauses, all kind of in the same basic theme. That's the only picture of Santa in this entire thing, by the way. One picture of he had taken a back seat. That's dirty. As well as some, things that you can add in. There's Mrs. Claus in Paris, because of course we had to add Paris. Just beautiful, beautiful graphics as I flip through her. I also did the Nutcracker mouse stuff in here. So there's a bunch of Nutcrackers. Flipping through Rudolph, of course. Oh, I take that back. There are a few of Santa. Santa is eating Mrs. Claus's cookies. I had to put Santa in here. As well as just a lot of just little graphics. Love the little snow globes. Those were super cute. A lot of snowflakies. You could print these out on, cardstock to include in your journal. They would be great and stacked. You'll see a lot of these as I'm journaling and throwing things together in here as well. There's a cute sticker page of Mrs. Claus. There's Mrs. Claus when she was younger. And as well as some Mrs. Claus's kitchens, because I thought that would be super cute to, do a background of her kitchen. And then there's a few of those different kitchen examples in here and different retro eras. Mrs. Claus in her kitchen. Somewhere in there is Frosty. Oh, Mrs. Claus invents the cookie machine, the magic machine that runs on cookie power in the story. Anyway, the North Pole, a lot of villages. Somewhere there was Frosty. I don't know where Frosty went. But yeah, so there is literally 50 pages of graphics for you guys to have for free. All you have to do is go sign up to download the packet, and you'll be good to go. You can, all I ask is that you don't sell the entire packet, but you can, by all means, create a journal and sell your journal with those graphics, and then we should be good to go. If you want a release, just send me an email, and I'll sign your release so that you are good to go. These were all, like I said, created using Junk Journal AI, which is so close to being done. My developers showed me what they were working on today, which was really exciting. So I'm super excited about that. As I mentioned also, because I kept Mrs. Claus to 6 weeks, I probably will make these 6 weeks instead of 8 because it felt like a little bit long with the Bride of Frankenstein, and I need a couple of recovery weeks to get ready for the next thing. But specifically, Mrs. Claus was cut short at mid-December because I don't know if you guys know what the 12 Magical Nights are, but if you go to 12magicalnights.com, I threw up an entire webpage explaining what it is. I've done this 12 Magical Nights, and it's really, rather than doing New Year's intentions and goal setting, I started doing this 12 Magical Nights. It's where you pick this 13 wishes, and you burn during the solstice, winter solstice, you burn one of the wishes each night, and the 13th one that you're left over with is the one that you're responsible for coming true, and you release the rest of the wishes to the universe to help make, come true, basically. I actually, this last year, created, let me see if I can grab it, an entire, Daisy's underneath me, an entire journal to go with my 12 Magical Nights. And so I want to do the 12 Magical Nights journal with you all. And basically, I added all of my wishes into the front part of this, right? And so gain 500 followers. That was one of my wishes. I was responsible for the followers this year. So that was my 13th wish. But then I also included, let me see if I can grab it. I made for each month, I included an area where I can actually journal in the journal on what I did to work towards my goals. So I was super excited about that. And I tucked a bunch of like affirmation cards and things like that into my journal anyway. I want to help you guys create a 12 magical nights journal. And we would start that on well, you're supposed to start it on the 21st. The first day of the solstice would be your first burning your first wish. So we will probably, I think I'm looking to schedule that. We'll probably do a webinar or something where we can put the journal together. I haven't decided if I'm going to actually put together packets that I can mail out to you guys, but I'm looking at the 18th or 19th or, to actually work to put together the journal together that week. Along with all the instructions and all of that stuff. So you guys it's really about setting your goals and intentions for 2026. And so I'm really excited about that project because, again, it's something really beautiful, super easy to put together and create, but also something super fun that I have spent, quite a bit of time with. Oh, here's our spread for August. Super fun to actually journal in and included the intention cards and things like that. Just kind of kept me on track with the various different goals that I had for the year. And they were big, lofty goals. And it's exciting to see those come to fruition. Of course, I've got all my tuck spots and things like that in here. I've also included some photographs of that I found along the way of my parents and stuff like that. So God bless when we were little kids. So exciting stuff. Again, I want to say thank you so much for joining me tonight. I see there's at least one person that has stuck with me throughout the thing. But if you're watching this after the fact, again, thank you for being part of this creative experiment. This project was inspired. I hope that this project has inspired you. And I love for you to start your own, version of these journals, whether it's Vivian's story or, your own heroine journey. Would be really awesome. So don't forget that you are the heroine in your own story, and your journal is a reflection of that. Don't forget to like and subscribe either to the Facebook group or to the YouTube page. I have on the YouTube page a whole bunch of tutorials. Kind of what kicked this off was I did a tale of traveling junk journal using non-conventional materials for my cover. I did this year a journal that was Care Bears themed. The entire thing was Care Bears themed for my sister for her birthday. She cried, just FYI, when she received it. It was a lot of fun to amass all the Care Bears junk I could possibly find to stick in it. It was very expensive to put it together, but because I went and found vintage Care Bears stuff between books and, a variety of things. So, and then I took photos of us as kids that I had here, and I put them in the journal, and then, photos of her and her kids. And so it really just it was a labor of love. And I'm glad that I was able to give it to her. And, she got a little bit of a glimpse into, the magic of junk journaling or art journaling is really, that experience of getting to flip through the journal. So that's why I'm doing this and why I'm really excited to utilize my passion for artificial intelligence and the background and work that I do. I've actually been working in artificial intelligence as part of my job for years and building out artificial intelligence agents and systems and things like that, which has been super exciting. But I was challenged recently to just solve a real everyday problem. And for me, it was, how often we need a graphic in the moment that we're creating and you don't have one that's specifically the vibe or whatever the case may be. And just the cost of putting buying all of the graphics, buying all the stickers, buying all the graphics packages and all of that. And they don't always meet your aesthetic, or you might use one page out of the entire thing. And I love to buy things too. I probably need to slow down on purchasing things, but that's part of the fun. But again, I found I have reams and reams of paper that I don't use because they don't match whatever I'm working on in the moment. So I would rather spend my money on finding the cool things, buying the cool things that, that make the journal exciting, like the bits and bobs and things like that, than the graphics themselves. And the graphics can easily be created with artificial intelligence, or drawing. I mean, I draw and paint too, so you'll see a lot of that in the journal over time as also. So don't forget to post your creations too and tag them, to Paper and Prose Society, or on the Paper and Prose Society Facebook page, which is a public page. Anybody can join and follow along. Until next time, keep creating, keep imagining, and keep writing your own story. I look forward to seeing you guys as we get ready to start the Mrs. Claus story. Have a good rest of your night and enjoy your Halloween. I'll post some photos. Daisy and I are going to be the bride of Frankenstein and Frankenstein, so that'll be super cute if I can get her into the Frankenstein costume. Daisy's my French bulldog. We'll see if she's willing to put it on tomorrow. So exciting stuff. Look forward to seeing you guys more in the future. Have a good rest of your evening. Thank you.